It's Nolan.
Now, before we get started, make sure y'all hitting that like button. Make sure y'all sharing it on your respective platforms. Let somebody know what we're doing today. Now, let's get into the show.
End of the year coming, I'm posted like Tim Duncan. Teaching niggas how to grow they shit like it's Teen Summit. Teaching niggas how to talk to me, I don't hear nothing. You red pill rappers about to fall from the red button. This chair comfy, need real money. Let me find out you industry niggas is Ted Bundy. Let me find out, let me wind down. Take some time out to calculate the weight I clear monthly. USD to them pounds, feet deep in the ground. Stand firm like your whole shit for $200. I'm big worm, switch the game up to help y'all score. Dave Stern try to box me in Martin. I treat him like T. Hearns. Got a baby doing 5 weeks. Made it through my juvenile hell, was bumping my deep. Homies in them 2-man cells struggle to find sleep. We ain't talking Casanat, we don't talk like barbershops. Circumvent the streams, we taking it back to mom and pop. Distribution, pick and choosing for the institution. Niggas losing, y'all can check the units. They say the internet level the plan failed. I say they made you confident and racing with your training wheels. Fuck 'em rapping for if I can't pay a cable bill. Fuck 'em rapping for if I can't even say what's real. How you say you independent with a major deal? Niggas fell in love with the lies. I see how shady feel.
What's going on, beautiful people? It's the kid J Nolan here. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Industry, your number one source for music, entertainment, commentary, and breakdowns. Hope everybody is doing well out there. Now, in this video, we're going to be getting into Drake and alleged botted streams in the upper metrics of billions, it's being stated, okay? Now, this last week has been hellacious for Aubrey Drake Graham, I must say. You know, he got 2 back-to-back class action lawsuits last week between himself, Steak, and Aiden Ross for false promoting and perhaps false gambling, just to put it in one catch-all term, false promoting, false gambling, and misleading the public, right? In Missouri and New Mexico. From there, he attached himself to the World Series because it was Toronto versus LA, and Toronto ended up losing in a best-of-7 series. The Dodgers won, and of course, that was the LA-Toronto matchup, kind of like Kendrick versus Drake, and he lost all over again. Okay? Just talked about that. And as the week is getting a fresh start, it is now November 3rd, Monday. We've got a fresh lawsuit. But this time, Drake is not a defendant. I will give him that much. He's not a defendant, but he is heavily sourced in this lawsuit coming from rapper RBX. All my West Coast folks, stand up. Y'all know RBX. He was on The Chronic. He was on a lot of different projects coming out of the West Coast. He was on Dr. Dre's Compton album. I'm high powered. The nigga with the voice. You feel me? I drop bombs like Hiroshima. So RBX is suing Spotify, right? His actual grudge is with Spotify. It's a class action lawsuit, and he's suing on behalf of artists that are similarly positioned, as they would say, who feel disparaged by Spotify, who feel robbed, who feel like they're not getting their fair share of the pie because of massive artists, Drake being an example of people who are taking up so much market share that other artists are not able to be properly compensated. And they're using Drake as a launching pad to say, not to mention, are these people taking up market share, but it's also artificial, right? As far as botting and all of that goes. So the very same allegation that Drake tried to put out there on Kendrick Lamar and that he pursued for nearly a year against UMG, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and anyone else who dared to breathe in the wrong direction, we now see his name showing up on the opposite end. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is actually pull up the lawsuit so that we can get to the root of RBX's complaint and see all of the details. Because, of course, Drake is the headline. and we're definitely going to get into Drake, but there's more to it than just Drake. He is a symptom of a bigger issue, as I like to say. All right, here we go. We're in the complaint. United States District Court of Central District, California. This is a class action complaint. Jury trial is demanded from Eric Dwayne Collins, aka RBX. Okay, individually and on behalf of other members of the general public similarly situated versus plaintiff, Spotify USA, Spotify Technology, etc. All right. So for his complaint against defendant Spotify USA Inc., Spotify Technology SA, and Spotify AB, plaintiff Eric Dwayne Collins, individually and on behalf of all other members of the general public similarly situated, based on information and belief, alleges as follows. To make it in the music business, you need a unique mix of extraordinary talent, determination, skill, and luck. And once you get on top, it's even harder to stay there. Very interesting introduction. He about to write a book on your ass. Some say the music business is a quote-unquote hustle because it's a dog-eat-dog environment and you need to think of ways to break new ground every day. The famous American journalist and author Hunter S. Thompson once said the music business is a cruel and shallow money trench. There's also a negative side. Okay, so Hunter S. Thompson said the cruel and shallow money trench was the positive, but there's also a negative. When it comes to recorded music, every month more than 100,000 artists, songwriters, and producers are forced to compete for their share of a limited pool of royalty payments from Spotify. This is things that we've covered for years. These are conversations that have been happening for many years, probably at least 7, when people really started seeing how these payments got deduced and broken down. Success begets success, and a higher stream share means not only more money, but also placement on top 10 playlists that further increase stream share and other promotional attention. In the face of this competition, some take the hustle too far. They resort to cheating. Every month, under Spotify's watchful eye, billions of fraudulent streams are generated from fake, illegitimate, and or illegal methods such as bots. As described herein, data analysis shows that billions of fraudulent streams have been generated with respect to songs of the most streamed artists of all time. Aubrey, Drake, Graham, they waste no time getting to the bullshit. Professionally known as Drake. But while the streaming fraud with respect to Drake's songs may be one example, it does not stand alone. Again, a symptom of a bigger issue, but he is the most strong symptom, I guess you could say, for lack of better terms. The most recognizable symptom. This mass-scale fraudulent streaming causes massive financial harm to legitimate artists, songwriters, producers, and other rights holders whose proportional share is decreased as a result of fraudulent stream inflation on Spotify's platform. You remember when Drake said that UMG and Kendrick were allegedly botting Not Like Us, and that those streams that were going to that song would have otherwise been for people listening to his music? Boy, RBX says, no, the fuck they was not going to listen to your music. Who's been listening to your music? You got billions of fake ones. Oh, shit, hold on. Spotify publicly claims that it has policies and procedures in place to root out fraud, but its purported system is nothing more than window dressing, inadequate at best. I want to stop here. And the reason why I want to stop here is because Spotify does a lot of gallivanting around. They do a lot of chest poking as well, right? They talk about how good their policies and procedures are in terms of combating fraudulent streams and bots. But I've yet to see an actual major label signed artist who I would presume gets the biggest amount of streaming fraud on their music. I've never seen an industry artist album get taken down. I've never seen an industry artist single be taken down under the suspicion of fake bots. But I've seen dozens of independent artists whose music has been taken down under the suspicion of fake botted streams. There's one on YouTube who's been, coming out and exposing this for the last about a year. Her name is Kara or Kara. I don't know how she pronounces it, but y'all should look into her. She's a industry songwriter. She gives tutorials on music creation. She gives tutorials on her systems of creating income as an independent artist and songwriter. And she released an album organically. She put all her resources together. She spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to create this album. And because she was able to amass hundreds of thousands of streams within like the first month or so, Spotify says it's got to come down. Right? Shout out to Thurs, West once again. Another very, very talented MC, independent artist, somebody who I've listened to and looked up to. You know what I'm saying? Back when you and I was at their peak in the blog era, I had the pleasure of talking to these guys. I've had the pleasure of collaborating twice with Thurs. But he released an album, I believe, late last year, which also met the same fate. So independent artists are getting their albums tossed, and they're not even proving that there's AI bots or streams on the music. But we've never seen or heard of a major label signed artist album being taken down, despite we all know a lot of these projects are getting artificial activity on them. I wanted to stop and say that because I think it's very vital that we speak to how different things are between the two worlds, right? So he says Spotify does a lot of window dressing. Their policies are inadequate at best. They said the truth is, like the artists who compete on its site, Spotify is engaged in a hustle of its own. To satisfy constant pressure from shareholders to grow the business and increase stock prices, Spotify needs an ever-expanding population of users to engage on its platform. Accordingly, Spotify is all too happy to turn a blind eye to the substantial number of fake users on its platform whose activities are controlled by artificial bots to fraudulently inflate streams. The more users, including fake users, Spotify has, the more advertisements it can sell, the more profits the company can report, all of which serves to increase the purported value delivered to shareholders. And I think it's also interesting that the major labels all own minor shares in Spotify. So that's probably another reason why these projects never go missing, is because the labels who are distributing and uploading them also have dual ownership in not only the recordings, but also the platform in which Spotify is held. I'll digress and continue. Plaintiff is a world-renowned performer who, for decades, has used his voice to dazzle audiences across the globe. And of course, Plaintiff as in RBX. He comes forward now to use his voice for a new purpose. Plaintiff brings this case to bring justice for his brother and sister creators and entertainers. In doing so, Plaintiff gives a voice to more than 100,000 rights holders who, among other things, may be unable or too afraid to challenge Spotify, a powerful force in the music business whose failure to act has caused significant problems and great financial harm. Now we get to Drake in specific. Music streams of Drake's music is artificially boosted by bots. Got a whole section here. Drake is a well-known singer-songwriter whose music is available for streaming on Spotify. In fact, Drake is purportedly the most streamed artist of all time on the platform. In September 2025, Drake became the first artist to nominally achieve 120 billion streams on Spotify. However, on Information and Belief, there is voluminous information of which Spotify knows or should know, showing them that between January 2022 and September 2025, a substantial, non-trivial percentage of Drake's 37, billion streams on Spotify during that time frame were inauthentic and appeared to be the work of a sprawling network of bot accounts. So they're saying Drake has over 37 billion fake streams within the past 3 years. Plaintiff is informed and believes that an examination of Drake's music streams reveals abnormal VPN usage, seemingly designed to obscure the true geographic origins of the bot accounts that were streaming his songs. For example, plaintiff is informed and believes that over a 4-day period in 2024, at least 250,000 streams of Drake's song No Face, remember No Face, originated in Turkey, but were falsely geomapped through the coordinated use of VPNs to the United Kingdom in an attempt to obscure their origins. Now, very interesting that they point out Turkey, because when Drake's lawsuit was still active, guess what the DJ that Don't Spin was putting out there? That the labels were being looked into over in Turkey for bots, right? But he was shooting in the direction of Kendrick and Not Like Us and UMG being under the gun, which UMG would still be under the gun because they represent Drake. But rather than Not Like Us, it's aimed at Drake over a 3-year period, they say, where 37 billion streams have been accumulated falsely. Further, plaintiff is informed and believes that a large percentage of the accounts streaming Drake's music were geographically concentrated around areas whose populations could not support the volume of streams emanating therefrom. In some cases, massive amounts of music streams, more than 100 million streams, originated in areas with 0 residential addresses. So RBX is saying that Drake is getting streams in areas where people don't even live. So who the fuck is playing this music? Moreover, plaintiff is informed and believes that geohash data shows, and this is the type of shit that was missing from Drake's complaint. You want to claim people were botting, and you had 0 language of what, you know what I'm saying, to even show where you were getting your information from. Geohash data shows that nearly 10% of Drake's streams come from users whose location data showed that they traveled a minimum of 15,000 kilometers in a month, moved unreasonable locations between songs, consecutive plays separated by mere seconds, but spanning thousands of kilometers, including more than 500 kilometers between songs, roughly the distance from New York City to Pittsburgh. So they're saying 10% of Drake's streams are coming from users who are just moving about from place to place thousands of miles. So clearly they're not real. Also, plaintiff is informed, and this is within seconds, by the way. Also, plaintiff is informed and believes that between January 2022 and September 2025, the volume and timing of the music streams for Drake's music failed to follow typical established streaming patterns. While most songs and or albums see an initial spike in streaming immediately upon release, those same songs, albums typically follow a predictable decay pattern over the following months. However, in many instances, the streams of Drake's music on Spotify saw significant and irregular uptick months, and in some cases years, after the release of his songs, with no reasonable explanations for those upticks other than streaming fraud. So, for all my people who are on social media, and we keep seeing these different pages talking about Drake having these streaming titles, despite his popularity decreasing among real people, every month they come out and say, Drake just broke another streaming record. He just broke another Spotify record. RBX is here to say, we've done the research. It's bullshit. And again, his complaint is not against Drake. They're using Drake as an example of the biggest streaming artist of all time and saying he's taking home all, or his musical entity, the Drake entity, is bringing in all of this money for fake streams, while people who are out here really working their music are getting a diluted downpour from the revenue stream. Okay? Just being very specific about what it is that they're conveying here. and in some cases, years after the release of the songs with no reasonable explanations for those upticks other than streaming fraud. In other instances, Drake's decay rate was slower and less dramatic when compared to those of his contemporaries. Additionally, the number of streams of Drake's music attributable to individual accounts is staggering and irregular. For instance, Plaintiff is informed and believes that while the average Spotify listener listens to 10 songs per day, a massive amount of the accounts listening to Drake's music, Drake's quote-unquote users, listened exclusively to Drake's music for 23 hours a day. Now, I know Drake got a lot of OV-ho pages, a lot of stands, a lot of Club Paradise niggas that just be sitting around doing nothing, talking about Drake. But damn, you listen to this nigga 23 hours a day? Give me a fucking break. You serving prison sentences with this nigga shit? Y'all niggas getting 1 hour in sunlight to go work out and get chow time? Y'all running the Green Mile with this nigga? Come on, man. Plaintiff is informed and believes that streaming data of Drake's music shows that less than 2%, nigga, milk, skim milk, face that account for roughly 15% of his overall streams. And roughly 9% of his streams are attributable to less than 1% of his users. As a result, Drake's music accumulated far higher total streams compared to other highly streamed artists, even though those artists had more users than Drake. So they're saying that other artists in the industry have way more listeners, individual listeners that are listening to their music. But he has these small pockets of people who are just streaming his music to otherworldly metrics. Streaming wise, I'm out of here. You're not fucking keeping up. We see why. As a result of the fraudulent streaming scheme described above with respect to Drake's music, the rights holders of Drake's music, Drake and his company Frozen Moments, saw their shares of the revenue pool substantially and artificially increased. This generated significant revenues for Drake and Frozen Moments LLC, all at the expense of other rights holders whose shares and revenues were greatly diminished. The very allegation he claimed Not Like Us was doing to him, RBX is coming with the research. The amount of streaming revenue that would otherwise have been distributed to legitimate rights holders, but for the fraudulent boosting of Drake's music, is estimated to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So they're saying this nigga alone is pocketing hundreds of millions of dollars on bootleg streams. Stream East ass nigga. Spotify knew or should have known about the anomalies described above had Spotify employed reasonable detection measures. Oh, they got them. They just don't use them for very select people. These artificial and inauthentic streams were readily identifiable to Spotify in light of their statistically improbable geo-hashing, sudden surges in stream accounts, coordinated streaming patterns, and uniquely slow and shallow decay of streaming of songs. But to date, Spotify has never properly addressed the millions, if not billions, of fraudulent and artificial music streams attributed to Drake's music, and the ill-gotten revenues from those streams have never been properly distributed among the legitimate rights holders to whom the revenue is properly owed. No wonder UMG gave him a $450 million deal or whatever the fuck that was in 2022. The year that they say he started receiving 37 billion fake ones. Spotify's failure to prevent streaming fraud. Drake's music streams are but one notable attempt of the rampant streaming fraud that Spotify has allowed to occur across myriad artists through negligence and or willful blindness. At all times relevant to the allegations contained herein, Spotify was one of the easiest platforms to defraud using bots due to its negligent, lax, and or non-existent bot-related security measures. For instance, Spotify offers a free ad-supported version of its streaming services, which does not require the use of a valid credit card to sign up. This creates the ideal conditions for fraudulent bot accounts to create fake Spotify accounts, since bots do not possess valid credit card numbers and or not in the volume required for meaningful bot-supported streaming fraud. So they're using free accounts to bot this nigga music. You ain't even supposed to be able to select the music you play. Like if you click on an artist, they just gonna play some random shit from that nigga. They might let you pick the first song or two, then they on your ass with some other shit. And Spotify has an incentive for turning a blinding eye to the blatant streaming fraud occurred on its service. Now that part I like. Because again, I've seen no major label acts who have had their albums deleted. Spotify derived revenue in part from advertising. The higher the volume of individual streams, the more Spotify could charge for ads. By properly detecting and or removing fraudulent streams from its service, Spotify would lose significant advertising revenue. Spotify's efforts to implement countermeasures appear to have systemically, failed over the last 4 years to prevent or detect reporting of an allocation of streamer revenue based upon billions of inauthentic streams. And ultimately, through negligence and or willful blindness, Spotify failed to maintain platform integrity and failed to prevent the use of artificial bot streaming to inflate the number of streams reported for various artists, including but not limited to Drake. Moreover, by representing to rights holders and others that Spotify employs active measures to detect, prevent, and remedy streaming fraud, and by the not revealing the stark reality that streaming fraud continues to surge on its platform, Spotify conceals from rights holders both the enormity of this problem and its detrimental financial impact to legitimate rights holders. So with all that being stated, we finally get to plaintiff's claims against defendants, all right? So this is where he gets to the specifics of himself versus Spotify. So plaintiff Dwayne Collins, known professionally as RBX, is an American rapper and recording artist who currently resides in Long Beach, California. He's widely recognized for his distinctive voice and influential lyrical contributions to the foundation of West Coast hip-hop. Facts. RBX first gained popularity through his appearances on Dr. Dre's 1992 triple platinum album The Chronic and Snoop Doggy Dogg's 1993 debut album Doggy Style, which has sold more than 11 million copies worldwide. Microphone killer. Plaintiff Collins has also released multiple solo albums, including his 1999 debut, The RBX Files, which achieved gold certification, as well as No Mercy, No Remorse 1999 and The Shining 2004. His solo catalog further established him as a key contributor to the evolution of the West Coast rap sound. Building on his early success, RBX has continued to collaborate with numerous multi-platinum artists throughout his career, appearing on Eminem's The Marshall Mathers LP, Remember Me, which is 11 times platinum shit. Criss Cross's Da Bomb, which is platinum, and Warren G's I Want It All, gold. RBX possesses royalty rights and a range of notable and commercially successful songs and albums, including The Day the Niggas Took Over, Facts, High Power, Let Me Ride, holy shit. Didn't know he wrote on fucking Let Me Ride, which is a Dre solo song. Lyrical Gangbang, which is a collab. Stranded on Death Row, an iconic collab. The Roach, Rat-a-tat-tat, fucking with Dre Day, didn't know he wrote on that. Remember Me, which is Eminem. Serial Killer, Sound of My Hood, and Gangsta Love. Plaintiff Collins' music, to which he owns the royalty rights, is available for streaming on Spotify. As such, he derives revenue from his share of the revenue pool as determined by the total number of streams of his music. Along with the other legitimate rights holders, Plaintiff Collins' share of Spotify's revenue pool has been unjustly diminished and unfairly redistributed to his financial detriment as a result of the artificial and inflated fraudulent streaming of the music that Spotify failed to detect, address, and or cure. So he's saying I should be getting more money off of the streams of this music that I've had a vital hand in, classic music that people still live to today. But because you're giving out crazy payouts for people like Drake, who we've done research on our own, and we were able to find 37 billion fake streams alone just in the last 3 years of this guy. Hundreds of millions of dollars in value. And y'all are paying it out to these motherfuckers instead of us. Class action allegations. Plaintiff brings this action on behalf of himself and all others similarly situated as a class action under Rule 23 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Plaintiff seeks to represent the following classes defined as and as collectively referred to as the class. So we've got a nationwide class here, which is all residents of the United States of America who during the period January 1st, 2018 through the present possessed royalties rights for on-demand digital media content that was hosted by Spotify rights holders and whose royalties and subscription revenue shares were diminished as a consequence of the defendant's wrongful conduct. Very interesting that they chose 2018, which was also the year of Scorpion, which was massively promoted. Drake's image was on just about every playlist on the platform, even those that did not play hip-hop or rap music. We've got a California subclass. All residents of the state of California who during the period January 1st, 2018 through the present possess royalty rights for on-demand digital media content that was hosted by Spotify and whose royalties and subscription revenue shares were diminished as a consequence of the defendant's wrongful conduct. Plaintiff reserves the right to amend the class definitions if discovery and further investigation reveals that the class should be expanded or otherwise modified. How I get in this motherfucker, man? I've been releasing music. I dropped an album that year. Plaintiff reserves the right to establish additional subclasses as appropriate. This action is brought and properly may be maintained as a class action under the provisions of Federal Rights of Civil Procedure 23A14 and 23B1, B2, or B3. Sound like vitamins out this motherfucker, man. And satisfies the requirements thereof. As used herein, the term class members shall mean and refer to the members of the class. Numerosity. While the exact number of members of the class is unknown to plaintiff at this time and can only be determined by appropriate discovery, membership in the class is ascertainable based upon the records maintained by defendants. At this time, plaintiff is informed and believes that the class includes thousands of members. I know I'm part of it. I got to be honest. Therefore, the class is sufficiently numerous that joinder of all members of the class in a single action is impracticable under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure Rule 23A1, and the resolution of their claims through the procedure of a class action will be of benefit to the parties and the court. I ain't gonna make number like $39, but fuck it. You'll get a meal out of it. Ascertainability. The identities and contact information of members of the class are available from defendants' records, and others can be ascertained through appropriate notice. Notice can be provided to the members of the class through direct mailing, electronic communications, publication, or otherwise using techniques and a form of notice similar to those customarily used in consumer class actions arising under California state law and federal law. Typicality. Plaintiff's claims are typical of the claims of the other members of the class, which he seeks to represent under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 23A3, because plaintiff and each member of the class has been subjected to the same negligent and fraudulent conduct and have been damaged in the same manner thereby. So basically, they want Spotify to pay for being negligent and allowing artists such as Drake. Of course, Drake is an example. Drake is a symptom. You know what I'm saying? He's just the most recognizable symptom of this illness called streaming fraud. And again, they've detected over 37 billion false streams on Drake's music between the years 2022 to 2025. What album did he release in 2022? So the first album Drake released in 2022 was honestly Nevermind. He released Certified Lover Boy the previous year, 2021. 2022, he released Honestly Nevermind, which nobody actually liked. Everybody said it was a load of horse shit when it dropped. It was universally panned. People only liked the one song featuring 21 Savage on it, and somehow it still reached double platinum status. Okay? Then, November 4th, 2022, he released Her Loss with 21 Savage, which was a little bit more popular, had a better rollout than Honestly Nevermind. I couldn't tell you a song off the fucking album, but that's also double platinum. 2023, October 6th, he released For All the Dogs. Okay? Which is also double platinum. It's very interesting. Okay? So that's what we know. And when they said January 1st, 2018, again, the album he released that year was Scorpion. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this class action thing goes. I think RBX is going to definitely need a revenue pool to keep this thing alive, because Spotify is definitely going to try to bury him in legal jargon and filings to keep themselves above water. This is a huge corporation we're talking about. We're talking about one of the biggest corporations in all of music at this stage. Their CEO is a pile of shit, Daniel Ek. His remedy has for many years been, if you don't like the money you're making on Spotify, release more music. That's been his public statement. So whatever happens to him, fuck him. You know what I mean? But I'm pretty sure they're going to try to drown RBX in legal filings and make this as contentious as possible for him to continue. As a matter of fact, they've also released a statement today. So here we're on Music Ally. They say Spotify responds to RBX lawsuit over fake Drake streams. Earlier today, we reported on a new lawsuit filed against Spotify by rapper RBX and his claims that a significant chunk of Drake's streams of Drake's music were fraudulent. Now Spotify has responded. We cannot comment on pending litigation. However, Spotify in no way benefits from the industry-wide challenge of artificial streaming, they claim, said its spokesperson in a statement sent. We heavily invest in always improving best-in-class systems to combat it and safeguard artist payouts with strong protections like removing fake streams, withholding royalties, and charging penalties. Our systems are working. In a case from last year, one bad actor was indicted for stealing $10 million from streaming services, only $60,000 of which came from Spotify, proving how effective we are at limiting the impact of artificial streaming on our platform. Now remember, this was the case of U.S. producer Michael Smith, an independent, once again, someone who's not affiliated with the major label system, and then they turn around and use him as the example, but they will never name an example of a major label artist because the major labels own a share in Spotify. They say he was arrested and charged over allegations of a $10 million streaming fraud, where he was using AI-generated music. Spotify quickly announced that it had only accounted for 0.6% of the alleged haul. A page on Spotify's website outlines its policies and approach around artificial streaming, while the company has also announced new measures to tackle mass uploads of tracks for fraudulent purposes, adding that it had removed 75 million spammy tracks in the previous year alone. And I'm sure not one of them were from major labels. RBX's lawsuit is surprising because it targets Spotify alone rather than Drake, his recordings partner Universal Music Group, or any external marketing or stream boosting agency. So although Drake, UMG, etc. are not defendants in this, Spotify themselves will have to answer to this because, again, RBX is claiming that Spotify has been turning a blind eye to the strange activity surrounding Drake's music. Okay? Now, again, he's not suing Drake. He's only using Drake as the biggest example of fraudulent streaming on the platform. And if he's the biggest so-called streaming artist of all time, you would think they would want to keep an extra eye on his activity so that they could certifiably announce how well he's doing on the platform versus inflated numbers. But for whatever reason, he was able to find this information out while they claim no such thing happened. So we're going to see how this thing plays out, because Drake was just at their front door digging around for Kendrick. They told him to get the fuck out. Right? But now they're being held liable for the same guy who came to their front door trying to dig around. Can't write this shit up, man. And Homeboy is in even more fire because as all of this is coming out, there's also this IG model OF girl, Gracie, what is her name? Gracie Bond. You know, she came out with some shit talking about Drake flew her out in a private jet alongside herself and Aiden Ross. They were moving about, going to UK parties and all this shit. And Drake ghosted her for 4-5 days, left her in the fucking hotel, even though he invited her out. She finally made her way to a party after being separately invited to something that ended up being a Drake party. And she claims that he was fucking around, doing some weird shit. We don't get clear indication of what it was that he was doing, but she was clearly heartbroken. She felt like he was misleading her, which seems to be his MO in all areas, just misleading. And it's been circulating on social media for the last couple of days. Now, there's been a lot of people that are speculating, you know, about what it is that she witnessed at these parties. Some people have tried to put it together that maybe he was with some minors, you know, because there is a quote where she said he was with women, if you could call them that. The people that she's with prodded her. She instantly cleared it up to say he wasn't with any, transsexuals or anything like that. She didn't clarify any further about what it is that she meant. So people assumed that she was talking about minors for her to say women, if you can call them that. She's come out since then and said that she feels anxious and worried about what it was that she said about Drake. She clarified that he wasn't doing anything illegal or wrong. And then she continued to give an example and say, let's say if a guy invited you out, said that he wanted to marry you, allowed you to meet his family and kid and all of this different type of stuff. But then you go to a party and you see him kissing on 40 hoes. You know what I'm saying? Colloquially speaking. So then she put that out there. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So then it kind of misdirects away from the minor narrative and just like, I guess women, if you could call them that, as in hoes. Now, earlier in the video, I made reference to the DJ that don't spin talking about the offices in Turkey. Because remember, they said that there was a lot of weird activity going on in Turkey surrounding Drake's music. Well, this post from months ago, offices of Universal Music Group and Sony Music, as well as other major record labels in Turkey, have been raided for accusations of bribery regarding labels paying individuals for Spotify playlist placements. A certain North American artist from the West Coast is also being investigated. Laughing face emoji. September 3rd, that was. Kendrick's name has since been cleared. Drake's name has now been thrown into the pot, specifically for having bots streaming his music in Turkey. Whack 100 has come out, and he claims that by 2026, it's gonna be over for Drake. He says, pay attention to what's happening to him ever since he lost that UMG lawsuit. First, his name got tied to the Stake lawsuit. Put that with an S, homie. Now, it's the Spotify lawsuit. Next up, the women are gonna start coming out. That is a quote from Whack 100. We'll play a little bit of this, and then I'm gonna move on with my life, okay?
Built your ass, we'll tear your ass down.
All because he wanted to be a soul loser.
Okay, wait, pay attention.
Yeah.
I want y'all to really think about in the last week what has happened. Since UMG has won that and they had to drop that shit, Drake being sued for falsely promoting steak. It's coming. Remember I told y'all this. The women are coming next. Them people ain't going for that. Oh, you think you finna, cause we didn't. They just hit him with the steak lawsuit, saying you falsely promoting the gambling act. You using the money from there. You lying to the people. You never put up no money. Now it is. The women coming next, bro.
Ooh, the women. Ooh.
Watch. Listen, bro.
Finish your food.
All these is guilty of DMing and putting the bitch on that plane.
Man, Wack, you said this a while ago. You said all this shit was.
So he said all these niggas is guilty of DMing and putting the women on the plane. Remember, Diddy was just convicted for the Mann Act, participating in trafficking for the benefit of sex. And he's saying so many others have done the same, including Drake, Gracie Bond. She said specifically she was flown out to Drake, but allegedly he ditched her. So we'll just have to see, man. Now remember, Wack 100 is the same guy who said that there was going to be a damning Megan Thee Stallion video of some Asian lady who had recorded what happened on the night of her shooting that was going to ruin her. We never received that. So just take Wack 100's opinions with a grain of salt. Perhaps not the grain of salt you would put on your own food, but that's up to you. All right. Let me know what y'all think of all this down below in the comments. Be sure to like and share this video. If this is your first time seeing me on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, become an insider. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one, man. It's looking real spooky out there, motherfucker, man. And it's not October no more, it's November. But it still ain't getting no better.
Yeah, family over fame in this bitch, yeah. The glory of living righteous is setting in. My street knowledge and education's a perfect blend. Young mogul, independent, I've been setting trends. The first one from my family to be faithfully wed. Fuck niggas and the horses that they riding on. I see this shit from all angles like a polygon. I'm never politicking, the drama be piling on. Father and greats unacknowledged like I'm Bobby Bonds. Conversation with my lady about the paper route. 5 sit bank accounts, every day I make it count. They down talking my commentary for hating now. Well, I can take it cause I'm bodying your favorite now, please. I could do this shit in my sleep. I been writing for these niggas, y'all read it and weep. I been fighting these niggas if you speak on the street. I'll turn your birthday party into New Year's Eve. Don't let me take it there. We ain't playing fair. This the ATL, Southside nigga moving furniture like Wayfair. Life on hold, no insurance for your healthcare. Lifeline gone, so you wanna be a millionaire? Well, let me tell you about this world I built. The women I dodged, the niggas that I ran for filth. The sympathy calls, consulting for the stacks I built. I had